group is Larissa, Monica, and Heidi, and we are going to present Chapter 3 of the Crotty text regarding Constructionism. In the past, objectivism was the dominant paradigm. No longer can that be viewed as the dominant paradigm. To some, including Merleau-Ponty and Heidegger, it has been replaced by constructionism. What is constructionism? It is that knowledge and reality are constructed. It's how we interact with the world. It requires social interaction. The world is without meaning until we experience it. Humans are named humans and give meaning to the world. Human being means being in the world. So rather than just discovering the world, those who look at the constructionism point of view say that they are interpreting the world, that they are constructing meaning, not creating it. In order to do this, there must be a few things. In constructionism, construct, not create reality. We seek to interpret the world. We construct meaning rather than create. Intentionality is part of it as well. With intentionality, if there is an object, it is described by the person experiencing it. So how I interpret things may be different than how you interpreted things. Is my reality your reality? Perhaps there is no true and valid interpretation. Perhaps there is both subjective and objective rather than one or the other. In this, they need to be brought together and held together. Meaning is both. The text talks about a bricoleur. This is the part where you take bits and pieces of what may have been a whole and you repurpose them. It made me think about something such as reuse for recycling. What was once X can now be Z. Constructionism requires imagination and creativity with what you have. What you have is not set in stone. How you look at it may be different than how I look at it. Researchers, when they are using it as a bricoleur, pay sustained attention to the objects of research, or Crotty, page 51. Constructivist is to be open, to have new meaning and interpretation, to not just look at the world in one way.
Even though we construct our understanding of the world as we explore it, everyone is born into a system of intelligibility or a system of significant symbols as described by Fish and Geertz respectively. More specifically, the cultures humans have created to function are provided as a framework in which our view or understanding of the world is created. When we first see the world in a meaningful fashion, we utilize aspects of home, religion, society, and family as lenses to make sense and create meaning of everything we encounter. All constructivists agree social interactions are created by humans, thus our social reality is constructed by humans. But some disagree on the thought of culture shaping our understanding of everything we encounter, such as nature. Greenwood and Giddens contend objects can exist without any socially constructed meaning. For example, a chair or a tree exists in our world even if we do not acknowledge their existence. On the other hand, Oakley and Blakey believe already existing objects are socially constructed. Oakley dives a little deeper and says that whether a culture even acknowledges an object existence is part of the object's socially constructed meaning. For example, buying milk at the grocery store does not mean a specific society will acknowledge the cow that made the milk. Thus, a tree or a chair being acknowledged is part of a socially constructed world. Blakey goes on to describe any existing objects cannot be investigated without a clean slate. That is, everyone has a notion of how to study and learn about pre-existing objects because of the culture they grew up in. Thus, nature is socially constructed before and as humans interact with it. To bring all the arguments together on page 57, Crotty states, the social world and the natural world are not to be seen then as distinct worlds existing side by side. They are one human world. We are born, each of us, into an already interpreted world, and it is at once natural and social.
The next section of our chapter is called Conformism or Critique, and it compares and contrasts the difference between constructionism with an N and constructivism with a V, and also explains what needs to be overcome in order to perform research in constructionism. So constructionism describes how we construct our worldview through our society and culture. It emphasizes the hold our culture has over us, and it shapes the way in which we see and feel things and gives us a definite view of the world. It fosters a critical view of the world and of science. Constructivism describes how we make meaning of the world in our own mind. It points out the unique experiences of each of us, and it resists the critical view of the world and of science. And the author states that these two are constantly being used instead of each other, and that it's very important to understand that when we're talking about social research, we should be aiming towards constructionism, because that fosters that critical view of the world and of science. And a few things that need to be overcome in order to make sure that we are doing this appropriately for constructionism are ratification and sedimentation. So ratification is the way our mind makes sense of the world around us. It feels like that's what our mind thinks is the truth. The understanding we subscribe to things takes deep root and can blind us to reality. So once we have an idea and it's stayed in there for a long time, it's very hard to get rid of in order for new information and new knowledge to come in. And this needs to be overcome to be able to critically evaluate the world around us, as in social constructionism, to be able to do research appropriately. Sedimentation also needs to be overcome. It's the process by which layers of interpretation are placed on what we view as reality, and that theories that are constructed are built upon those that came before them. So we constantly are looking back and just building upon what came instead of having new knowledge and new theories without view of the other ones that are put in place. So this also must be overcome in order to scientifically evaluate the world around us through social constructionism and perform social research appropriately. Our last section for this chapter is called Realism and Relativism, and it looked at whether social constructionism aligned with both these philosophical viewpoints. And in reality, it does align with both. So even though an idea or an experience is socially constructed, it is also real and can be real and linked with reality outside of people's minds and the ideas from people's minds. Social constructionism goes hand in hand with realism, but it also aligns with relativism. Since ideas, again, are socially constructed, they also have the sense that we make of them or the perception that we make of them. Therefore, it also aligns with relativism. That concludes our presentation on constructionism. Thank you so much for your attention. This is our reference.